I think we're live right this minute. Thank you for those who are here in the room. Thank you for those who are joining us online for this time of question and answer for the topic that none of us really want to have to deal with, but it's unconscionable for us as a civil society not to address when it deals with the most vulnerable among us, and that our children, but even young adults and even older adults that we know are being preyed upon and abused and trafficked for sexual purposes and financial gain. It's just horrendous. And so here we are as a group of people that are standing up and saying, not here, not now, not ever, not on our watch. And so thank you for that. Why don't we just have a word of prayer, and then we'll introduce our guest, and we'll jump right into why we're here. Father God, thank you so much for your goodness, your grace. Thank you, God, that you called us to be children of light. And that's what we're seeking to be, is your children of light, to bring justice where there's injustice, to bring healing where there is hurt and pain. Lord, to bring freedom where people are being held in bondage. We pray for your grace to continue to be upon each of us, that we may stay sober, that we may stay alert, and that, God, we might remain hopeful, even in the midst of dark times, even in the midst of tragic situations, that we as your children would keep our eyes fixed upon you, the God of all hope. And we're believing that even in these times that we're living in, and even with this issue that we're dealing with, that there's victory in you. And we pray for your continued grace and strength upon your people and upon those that continue to labor on the front lines of this issue. We pray this in the name of your son, Jesus. Amen. All right, I'm going to open up here. I'm Phillip O'Reilly, pastor of the Rock of KC, and we have a great panel here tonight of people that are on the front lines of this issue of human trafficking and all the stuff that goes with it. So I'll start to my left. We'll just go across. Russ Tuttle.
So my name is Russ Tuttle with the Stop Trafficking Project.
And my name is September Tribble, and I'm also with the Stop Trafficking Project.
My name is Heidi Olson. I'm a sexual assault nurse examiner at Children's Mercy.
I'm Eric Zond. I'm the Platte County prosecuting attorney.
Yeah, so one thing I failed to mention, you can text questions, and we'd love to get those questions. You can text them to 816-623-2062. It is a 0, by the way. Most people say O. It's not a letter, it's a number, okay? So that's just a little tip. That's for humor, okay? I laugh at my stuff. You don't have to. All right. Well, let's jump in then. Here's a question. What kind of questions should parents or guardians be asking their children to stay engaged and be looking for signs that there may be problems? So Josh McDowell years ago said that rules without relationships lead to rebellion. So what kind of questions should parents, guardians, and things to ask and to maybe get kids to open up, what to look for?
Phillip, I think you've already answered the question. And that is, the most important thing a parent can do is develop that relationship with their child where, first off, they're doing things together and they have a trusting relationship. One of the most important things I say to people all the time is, be with your child on your child's device. So much of this human trafficking starts over the internet. Why? Because that's where the kids are today, right? We used to have folks, and don't get me wrong, they're still there, but it used to be that all of the predators were on the playgrounds, at the parks. Why? Because that's where the kids were. Today, the kids are on internet-capable devices. They're on their phones, they're on their computers, they're on their gaming systems. And that's where the predators are. And so the most important thing is that that's where the parents are too, right? We play with our kids at the park. We play with our kids when they're at the swimming pool. We need to play with our kids when they're on their devices too. Let your kids show you what they're doing on their devices. That does two things. It helps you develop that relationship, and it helps you know what they're doing, because the kids always know more about what's happening on those devices than we do, right? They're always going to be ahead of us.
I know that. My grandchildren are teaching me. They know way more at 6 and 7. Yeah, great. Heidi?
I absolutely agree with all of that. I would say, like, of course, there has to be rules and boundaries in a home, but I think to be able to take the shame out of some of these conversations is huge. So I think if a kid thinks, oh my gosh, if I say something, my parents are going to think I'm a bad kid, or they're going to shame me, or I'm going to get in huge trouble, or whatever it is, then of course they're not going to be as inclined to share maybe, hey, this icky person is talking to me and I don't know what to do about it. So I think if there's a way to dialogue, even if you don't do it perfectly, but where it doesn't feel like all of this shame behind it, I think that's really going to open doors.
Yeah, and I would say when you have an opportunity to talk to your children, know that that is extremely important. We have no problem putting aside everything. If we have a child with a temperature, or we have a child that has hurt themselves. But sometimes when we have a child who just wants to talk and tell us about something, we're too busy. And so I would encourage you to understand that that teen who wants to talk to you at 10 o'clock at night when you're trying to shut everything down and get them in bed and they have school tomorrow and now they're ready to open up, that's when it's a great time to listen. And ask questions like, what was your favorite thing about the day? What was your least favorite thing? Sometimes when we send our kids to events, what we tend to ask is, did you listen? Did you help? Did you obey the adults? And those are relevant, good questions to ask. And we want to be asking deeper questions so that our kids can open up and engage with us.
So I'll add, just straight up ask them, what are you doing on your phone? I want to see it. It's my phone. You're 12. I own your phone, right? And if you get some pushback on that and they're hiding in the bathroom or they're hiding in the bedroom, then you know you probably got some issues. So they got their phone, you walk in the room, and all of a sudden they do this. What do you want? I mean, what do I want? I'm your parent. I want to have a conversation with you. So in the Stop Trafficking Project, literally everything we do is based on trusted relationship. So we focus on that with the organizations we work with, and we can be in a trusted relationship with an organization, another NGO, whatever it is. We know it's going to work. It's going to be the same thing with our families, to be in that trusted relationship. And Eric's exactly right. I mean, in when we've worked with victimized students, literally 100% of the victimized kids that actually fall into the crime of domestic minor sex trafficking or even a form of sexual exploitation, 100% of them, it's all happening online. 100%. So we have to have this understanding of this reality to not get into this mentality. Technology is the enemy. We're going to pull Wi-Fi out of our house and throw our phones in the lake and tie our kids up till they're 42. The mentality has to be, we have to understand that technology itself is not the enemy. Most of you tonight are not here in person. You're watching us online. So technology has a lot of great things with it. So technology itself is not the enemy, but technology is creating tremendous complexities in the lives of our families, in our schools, in our churches, in our communities. So we have to have a reality check on that. And then go, what is based on the trusted relationship? I would say this. It's all about the vulnerabilities in your kid more than you focusing on technology. A lot of people, even probably tonight, I need to know about technology. What about this app? How do I be safe on this? That's all good and fine, but that's only going to take you to a certain level. You need to know your kid better than you know the technology, but you have to understand this fact. There are vulnerabilities that our kids are facing. What is the role that their online life plays in that? So I kind of facetiously earlier said, hey, what are you doing on your phone? Enter into that calmly, collectively, coolly with your kid, okay? Depending on your child, one child's going to relate to different than the other one, okay? So know how to ask them that question without, the Bible says don't exasperate your kids, right? So don't be nagging at them, but go into a trusted relationship.
Okay, I've got a follow-up question to that. In each of yours line of work, what you're doing and what you've encountered, what are those vulnerabilities that you're seeing specifically that led to what X, Y, and Z case or situation? I know Heidi at Children's Mercy and some of the horrific things that you have to, every time I hear your stories I start crying. It's like, but knowing that, and with Russ in September, so all of us, whether we're parents or guardians, that we're aware, we see, we notice, because again, you know, we are the adults. We're called to be the protectors. We're called to be the sheepdogs. We want them to be little sheep. You know, we want them to be able to play and enjoy life and grow up, you know, and have these things without these concerns and worries, because there are people who are aware that are paying attention so that they can enjoy, as Ecclesiastes says, enjoy the days of your youth.
So our kids need a safety net. We can trust kids to be one thing, and that is kids. And because they're kids, they don't have the life experience that we as adults have been able to accumulate. And so accept the fact that your kids are going to make mistakes, and that doesn't make them bad kids. Removing the shame from things is really important, because we can trust kids to be kids, and that means making mistakes. But it's up to us to provide that safety net for kids when they make that mistake. It's up to us as parents. It's up to us as people who are in social institutions, in churches, in hospitals, in prosecutors' offices, in NGOs, to provide that safety net for our kids. And that's really important. And again, it comes back to what I think all of us have said before. It comes back to developing those relationships. Now, the most important relationship, in my opinion, is the parent-child relationship, right? That's the most important one, because there are only two people in the world who are qualified and can be a child's parents, and that's mom and dad. There are lots and lots of people who can be friends, lots of people who can be mentors, lots of people who can do other things, but only two people can be mom and dad, and it's really important for those of us who are moms and dads. My kids are now 19 and 22, so they're almost out on their own. But we had a lot of discussions as they're growing up, and still have some of these discussions about things that they're doing. Why are they doing these things? What are they thinking? And you have to trust your instincts as a parent to know when something's not quite right with your kid. And we know, right? There's not a list of things, do I have to? I mean, there are some lists that we can give you to look for. These are things that you ought to look for. But the fact of the matter is, you already know it. Because you know when something just is not quite right, particularly when it's your own child. And you often can know it with other children that you work with.
Yeah. Are you asking like what vulnerabilities I see, or okay? I just want to make sure I'm answering that right. So obviously, the more vulnerabilities a child has, the more likely a predator or a trafficker or someone is going to target them. And so I would say specifically what I see with kids at the hospital who are being exploited or abused is that there's multiple vulnerabilities in their world. So just like you were saying, there's a family breakdown. Maybe they're in foster care. With every single kid I see, there is a history of sexual abuse. There is something insidious about sexual abuse in a kid's world that makes them more vulnerable to be exploited. Then you just add in all of these other layers, like maybe they're being bullied online, they don't feel like they have any friends, they don't think that anybody sees them, they're addicted to pornography, just multiple layers of things that are hurting them mentally, where they don't feel supported, where, just their whole world feels like it's on the brink of collapse. And then you have this person comes in and says, hey, I can help you, I'll protect you, I see you. And of course, they start to exploit that child. And so I would say really that's the theme with almost every kid I see that's being trafficked, that's being exploited, that's being repeatedly abused, is that there's vulnerabilities, but there's multiple vulnerabilities usually. And so that's kind of, as sad as that is to hear, there are a lot of kids in our communities that fit that description, and that's definitely what predators look for.
So one of the things that we see a lot, and that I've seen with my history of the individuals that I'm working with, is we see an increased risk for those that are in foster care. Not necessarily because of the people in the placement of the foster care, but because of what they went through that required them to be removed from their home to be placed into that foster care home. I had 7 placements in foster care when I was a foster care parent, and then I was a foster care trainer, and this was a huge area that we saw massive vulnerability. And it's not just our kids that are in foster care, our kids that are running away. They are running either from something or they are running to someone, usually. Those are the two things that bring a child out of their home and away from it. So they become quite vulnerable. And then we have a lot of kids now who are being told, you don't really know who you are. It's cool, experiment in any way that you want to. So our kids that are jumping into experimentation, our kids that are coming out LGBTQ, plus, they are really at risk for bullying. They're at risk for rejection from their families, from their classmates, from society, and then from predators who are online. And I would say being online unsupervised is one of the number one vulnerabilities that we see.
So guys in this booth, maybe if you guys can run up the PowerPoint, the vulnerabilities parents must pay attention to, I think it'll help with a visual to kind of process everything, because what we're talking about, there are so many vulnerabilities, but I want to unpack it down to all the vulnerabilities that any kid everywhere can applies to them. And number one, what we're seeing right now is kids are lonely. And what an opportunity for the church and children's ministries and student ministries to ramp up their efforts in ministry to our kids, understanding that our kids right now, listen, this current generation is the most connected generation ever. I was talking to a local sheriff in Missouri a week and a half ago, and he was so concerned, kind of like you are, Pastor Phil, like, my 4-year-old grandson can't read, but he can do all this stuff online on the internet. So look, Grandpa, look what I saw. And he said, and it was a picture of a woman in lingerie. So our kids, it's the most connected generation ever, and it's one of the loneliest generations ever. Well, guess what? There's 3 kinds of people out there that know that better than all of us collectively on this panel tonight. There are perverts, predators, and pimps out there that know our kids are lonely, so they're going to prey on them online. The next thing, not only are our kids lonely, they're also going through isolation. And COVID-19 has increased this in really dramatic ways. So the levels of isolation, so a kid feels like, man, I can't really connect with somebody in person, so guess what? They're going to the safety and security of their online devices where I can really connect with people. And you need to know something about kids today is that they all have their accounts and then they have their fake accounts. Because it's their fake accounts where they can really kind of communicate with people. So when they're feeling isolated, they're really going to go out there. So I can be Russ Tuttle at whatever app, or I can be Russ.Tuttle at whatever app. It doesn't take a lot. But if parents aren't paying attention, we have to understand it. So levels of loneliness, isolation, and listen, depression. Our kids are facing depression now more than ever. And there are people out there who are preying on our kids online. They'll do one of 2 things. They'll be really, really kind to them, or they'll be extremely mean. Kind of no in between. And they're kind of learning what the vulnerability is in our kids, and they will prey on them online. One of the other things now we're seeing is the levels of suicide amongst kids. And suicide and just the suicide ideation, the conversations our kids are having about suicide. I'm talking to students all the time who are using one of the apps called TikTok, very popular right now. You can go on TikTok and learn eating disorders on TikTok. You can go on TikTok and learn how to die by suicide if you're a student. So as parents, as guardians, we need to know that. Yeah, can you do a bunch of cute dances and stuff on TikTok too? Yeah, absolutely. But this is one of the challenges that's coming with our kids, and kids at younger and younger ages, they're finding themselves in a place that there's no other way out, so I'm going to die by suicide. So we're also finding the levels of cyberbullying really increasing online, and some of you have touched on that as well. And then we're also finding kids entering into controlling relationships at younger and younger ages, kids who probably can't even comprehend what a controlling relationship is. So I got done with a school assembly in a rural Missouri community, and this was one of our assemblies for young elementary. We're talking kindergarten, 2nd, 3rd graders. A little 2nd grade girl walks up, and long story short, she had 17 adult men that she was connecting to on Tinder. Tinder is an adult dating hookup app. She's in 2nd grade. 2nd grade. 17 adult men are trying to get her to take her clothes off and send naked pictures. They know she's in 2nd grade. Do you think that little girl understands all the things we're seeing, what's involved in a controlling relationship, everything from the digital world to verbal to spiritual, emotional, psychological, physical, sexual, financial? She probably can't even really spell controlling relationship. So we as trusted adults have to be the ones that are in there. So I want us to get away from this understanding that, can never be my kid. Not my kid. I think that's one of the most dangerous things that we would say. And so these are some of the vulnerabilities that we are now finding in all kids. So yes, runaways, foster kids, sexual abuse, drug and alcohol, poverty, all these things ramp it up. But for all of our kids, these are things we have to pay attention to. And still then understand what all these things play in their online life.
And I just want to, yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, everybody kind of take a breath. Ooh, so I'm going to throw something else out there that I feel really led to share, because you talked about Josh McDowell and how he talked about rules without reason lead to rebellion. And one of the things he did is without relationship, thank you, without relationship, thank you, lead to rebellion. But he also talks about that our kids have to know the reasons. And he lined up kids and he asked them why purity was important. Because my mom and dad said so, because the Bible said so, but they didn't know why, what the root behind that was. And so church, I want to tell you that sometimes us not sharing those things can create a vulnerability in our children. So we don't want to ever live in fear, but we need to understand the world that we live in, and we need to talk with our kids, because I have talked with a young lady who was lured away from the safety of her Christian parents to go witness to someone why she shouldn't have an abortion. And she met a person that was not a girl that was going to have an abortion. It was a predator who did a lot of harm to her. I have another young woman that I work with that she had grown up in a homeschool family and had been taught the value of purity. And so her predator made sure when he assaulted her to let her know that she was no longer a virgin and she was no good in this Christian world. And he used all of those kinds of abuses that Russ was talking about. And so we don't ever want to fear that in any way. We do need to be aware of it. And I want to make you aware, because I come from a history where my sexual abuse started when I was 3 years old, and it was the teenage son of my Sunday school teacher. That was not the fault of the church. It was not the fault even of his mother. As far as I know, it was the fault of some of the things that he saw that led to him acting out. And that's vulnerabilities not only that we have for those that are being abused, but for our young abusers as well. We need to think about what vulnerabilities are they facing also.
See if any new questions have come in. Okay, here have a few others here. How have predators changed their tactics since awareness is growing? Are you seeing any change in tactics?
Well, in the end, no, because it's really all about grooming kids, developing that controlling relationship in very manipulative ways. So it's not changed since the beginning of time. Now, have the platforms, have the situations, have the places where it takes place changed? Absolutely they have. But to Russ's point earlier, I would encourage parents not to worry so much about the technology as to worry about the relationship and just the supervision in a really positive way that you give your kids. If you'll do that, you don't have to worry about as much about what today's great app is, because if you've got the right sort of relationship, your kid will be helping you and showing you that new great app, right? And so you can stay ahead of that. So I would say we just always have to be alert for those grooming behaviors against our kids, the sorts of relationships that just aren't right. And we need to teach kids, because kids have great instincts too, that when something doesn't feel quite right, that you need to tell a trusted adult. Hopefully it'll be mom and dad. If not, some other trusted adult. Tell somebody that something online or elsewhere has happened that just doesn't quite feel right. And if our kids will do that, we'll be able to save them from a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I agree. I think that as our world changes and technology changes, of course, predators are always going to be on the forefront of grooming and manipulating, but the tactics I don't think ever will change, because they always pick the path of least resistance, in a sense that whoever's the most vulnerable, whoever's an easy target, whoever's not going to speak out against them, that is who they're going to go after. And I think that, if there's a kid that does throw up red flags, or is like, I'm going to tell my mom, they'll move on to another kid that, doesn't have that ability, or, a safe place or someone to disclose to. I would say, though, I was thinking about this question in terms of trends that I've seen lately. So this is purely anecdotal from Heidi. Like, don't make this a news story or anything. I'm just saying that something I have noticed over the last few months is that we've had a lot of perpetrators who are in their young 20s committing extremely violent assaults against teenagers. And with exploitation as a part of it. You know, maybe they're giving these girls money after they assault them, or, you know, they're paying for something of value or whatever it may be. But a part of me, again, this is only the theory from Heidi, is I wonder if these are kids who have grown up throughout all their teen years where exploitation is normalized. Sending nudes is normalized, receiving nudes is normalized, pornography is normalized, and now you're acting that out on these teenage girls that you're talking to online. And so I would say that I've seen that multiple times over the last few months, that there's teenage girls, they talk to these guys who are 20, 21, who violently assault them, and then, you know, give them money afterwards, or, you know, threaten to share their nudes, or whatever it may be, that just feels very pornography influenced. And so I think that's definitely a trend I'm kind of seeing with guys in their younger 20s sort of acting out these violent behaviors.
Yeah, I would have to agree with Eric and Heidi. I don't know that we're seeing such a change in the way it's being approached. Since we've had lockdowns and people are at home more, we have definitely seen a documented increase in that online enticement. 97.5% increase has been reported by NCMEC, which is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and that is extremely alarming, and that's why we must be engaging with our kids on their devices and with them, because it is that grooming, it's finding out what is it that you want. You know, one of the stories that I share with kids is I ask them if they've seen the movie Frozen. Right? How many of you have seen it? Maybe too many times. Let it go. Okay. So the kids, right, they don't pick up on it at first. I remember I was sitting there with my adult children and I said, he's going to be a bad guy. And they're like, Mom. And he was the bad guy. I picked up on that. But it's, you know, it's using. And so being able to use a movie that is very popular to talk with our kids is a great way to engage and reduce those vulnerabilities and talk to them age appropriate with the worldview that's going on, because those tactics of grooming are going to remain strong from the predators, the pimps, and the perverts.
I'll say one of the things that I have seen change is the age of exploitation is getting younger. And I think a part of that is because a lot of us as adults now, we are giving students these devices at younger and younger ages. And part of it may be to keep up with the Joneses. Part of it may be, honestly, a very reality of, listen, my 12-year-old's getting off the bus to go play soccer and going from there to band. I mean, we want to know where our kids are. So again, it's not that kids shouldn't have cell phones, but they should have some boundaries around it based on trusted relationship with you as a trusted adult, telling them how it's going to work. That's why we tell people all the time, use our cell phone contract. We have a cell phone contract. Use that between you and your student. It's an important discussion point. It puts it in paper. If I break it as a parent, this is my responsibility. If you break it as the kid, this is your responsibility. But that is one of the patterns to directly answer the questions is I'm seeing the exploitation going younger and younger. And I think part of that, and Heidi and I talk about this all the time, is because at younger and younger ages when kids are being exposed to pornography for the first time, and also what's changing is the level, the violence within pornography for the people who study it, that we read their research, have to count on them. But what we're seeing with kids and child-on-child sex crimes, they're learning it through pornography. And those ages are getting younger and younger. So therefore, then the appetite for the sex buyers gonna find a sex seller, and the product is a child. The age of that child's getting younger and younger all the time. So we've actually had, September and I have actually had MOPS groups, moms of preschoolers in churches, contact us going, can you please come do presentations for us? Because our kids are 3 and 4 years old. We're already nervous about this based on their online activity. How are we going to process this? And so that's one of the patterns that I'm seeing. It's starting in younger and younger ages.
Yeah, I don't know if it's not a bad idea to take the technology away from them and say, go, you know, like, no, you're not getting it at 3. You're not getting it at 4. Nah, 7, 8, 9, no. Anyway, I'm just like, wow.
Well, there is a national movement. It's called Wait Till 8, and it's not 8 years old. It's 8th grade. There's a movement. You do not let your child have any kind of electronic device until they're in 8th grade. And when they're in 8th grade, then you have some really clear boundaries around it. And different families within this kind of a national movement. And again, you can find them online, so it's not like online life's bad, all of it, okay? So, so there's this balance, right? And part of it, some of those kids are getting phones that don't have internet connectivity. That technology does exist out there. But again, that's not so much the answer. And my fear is that and Eric, you and I are on the same page. My fear is that we will, as parents, focus so much just on the technology that once we find the technology you can put on your technology to keep you safer from technology, then we pat ourselves on the back as parents and go, we're paying $14.95 a month, all the devices are covered, my job's done. No, that's just the start.
Yeah. Have any new questions come in? Okay, all right, just make sure that I've got the ones. Making sure technology is working like it should. All right. So, what are the biggest mistakes parents are making with their children and access to modern technology? I know we probably maybe touched on this somewhat already, but do you see major mistakes that are being made with their children and access? Well, I think you just mentioned the one. They think because they put a $14.95 a month tracker or whatever that is, that we're done. I've seen that happen with people who've sent their kids to private school.
Yeah,
we're done. It's like, ooh, no, you're not even beginning. In fact, it may be more vigilance that's needed.
So guys, maybe just for the graphic-wise, maybe we can throw up, there's 2 slides in this PowerPoint. I think I called it, what did I call it? 1 image and 3 words. So we can throw that one. I think the visual will help us because here's perspective I want to give us. This is how most parents deal with this, okay? So if this was your friend, and this could be any farm door anywhere in Missouri or Kansas, and you go to the door and you knock on the door and your friend greets you at the door like this, you're like, what are you doing? You're an idiot. Half your door is glass. But most parents, especially, we choose to view this whole issue through a little peephole. Oh, hey, look, it's Russ. He's all oblong shaped. Look at him. Totally warped perspective, okay? The big window perspective is this. The next slide says this. It's all about 3 words. It is always about the exploitation of vulnerability. I don't care what form of trafficking we're talking about, whether it's on a global scale, the 27 major categories of trafficking, or we're boiling it down to sexual exploitation of our kids. It is always about those 3 words. So as parents, guardians, in our professional lives, if we will take this horrific discussion and boil it down to, I've got to have big window perspective. What's the bigger picture here? And boil it down to these 3 words. It's always about the exploitation of vulnerability. That then allows us to kind of take a deep breath regarding technology and go, what's the vulnerability in the kid I care about in my family? What's the vulnerability we care about in our kids at The Rock? What's the vulnerabilities we care about in our kids in Platte City, Platte County, Missouri, Kansas, in America, and identifying those vulnerabilities and then addressing those while understanding the role that our online lives play. That's really going to help us. And so one of the things that we have found is that we can go inner city, downtown Kansas City, and here's how parents go. Okay, the people, can't happen to my kid. We're too street smart. Okay, big windows, they're wrong. Go to the suburbs. No, it can't happen out here. We're living out here in Mayberry. It's all good. Wrong. And then we go ultra rural. We go to ultra rural, and it's like we leave the black lab in the back of the pickup truck. And we don't even lock our doors. The dog will be there in 9 hours. Well, our kids carry that mentality online. And all 3 of those perspectives are wrong. So what we have to understand is one common denominator. Doesn't matter if we're urban core, suburbs, or rural. The common denominator is what kids are doing online. So we as parents and guardians have to go, what's the big window perspective? How is the vulnerability in my kid potentially going to be exploited based on what they're doing online? That's how simple it can be.
Agreed.
Anyone else? Agree? Okay.
Yeah, and be the parent.
And let me come at this question another way that Russ has already come at it in the answer to some other questions. When we ask about what's the biggest mistake people are making with their children access to modern technology, much of it is giving children unfettered access to devices at too young an age. Now, don't get me wrong. They're under parental supervision. There are some things that are just fine for kids to do. But I will tell you, giving a child unfettered access to a device at a young age is a recipe for disaster. I will tell you, in my family, now this is the contract that we came up with our kids, because our kids understood that their cell phones, which they got when they entered 8th grade, so we did it when they got to 8th grade, and initially they didn't have any internet access except when I, using the parental controls, turned it on for an hour or two at home so that they could use it at home, in the living room. But here's the most important rule that we put in place in our family when my kids got their first device, which was that device charges at night in mom and dad's room. And it did so until they went to college. So our kids are now in college. Now they can charge their devices wherever they want. But they never fought that rule, even when they were 17 and 18 years old, because it was established from the very beginning. This is just the deal. This is the deal. Mom and dad pay for my phone, and this is where it charges. And we never had any pushback, and I can tell you from experience, I know these guys can tell you from experience, so much of the bad stuff that happens to kids online happens in their rooms at night. Not all of it, but so much of it. And so there are easy things like that we can do as parents, and Russ has a whole list of them. I'm going to commend to you the Stop Trafficking website. It's just phenomenal. So many resources on it. A whole list of great things that parents should do to help their kids.
That's so good. And be the parent. I can't tell you how many times I've heard a parent say, especially with an older child, but I can't invade their privacy. Guess what? Predators, pimps, and perverts are happy to invade their privacy, okay? We have to be the parent. We have to step up. And that doesn't mean secretly monitoring your kids' devices. Make it part of the culture of your home. There are no secrets. We don't have passwords that mom and dad don't know. Legally, that makes it the child's phone, and it makes it more difficult to prosecute a case if your minor child has a password that you are not privy to. So there are things that we can start doing, and we have great resources on our website and through our app that you can get a lot of information that's very helpful for you as parents. Be the parent. Don't be afraid. Be the parent.
Excellent. This question, what are the clear warning signs that everyone should be aware of? That your child's vulnerable, or they're already involved, or they're playing with fire? What are they? I think you mentioned one, kind of like their phone goes down immediately. Something's wrong. It may not be something with a friend, but.
So it's going to be different with every kid. You better know your kid. Again, this isn't about the technology. This is about your kid. So you may have, maybe you're the parent in the family and you've got the 3 classic kids that fit the first kid, middle kid, last kid, right? And so the first kid's like always late for everything but a perfectionist, right? And so that kid, you got their phone, and the way they're behaving is going to be different than the middle kid that everybody forgot about, and then the youngest baby that everybody loves and thinks is amazing gets away with murder. That kid's going to react differently too. You need to know your kids. And based on that activity, you need to then remember it's about 3 words and go, okay, what's the not the people thing, what's the big window perspective for that kid, first kid, second kid, third kid, whatever it is, what am I seeing? So the personality differences, the changes in behavior, how they are respecting your authority now, because now all of a sudden they're 12. Is this just a 12-year-old behavior, or is this because the 12-year-old's been online for 3 hours? What are we doing? Paying attention to who they hang out with. One of our rules is I get to read your phone anytime I want to. So make sure the kids that you're texting with know that I'm reading it too. Once they know that, amazing how the conversations change. Because her dad might read that. Yeah, you're right, because I'm their protector. And so I think probably the heart of the question, though, is probably coming down to, some of the myths around trafficking. White van pulled up on Independence, grabbed a girl off, threw her in the basement, tied up to radiator, horrible things happening. That is so rare. Not impossible, but so rare. And I think the heart of that question wants us to provide A, B, C, D answers to go, that's exactly what's happened to my kid. That's it, trafficking. They've got the tattoo. I heard if they got a tattoo, that's it. Okay, well, maybe they got a tattoo of a daisy on their ankle, and it's not, a slave tag with a barcode on their neck. It's a completely different thing, so it has to be contextualized. So I think the heart of the question, I wish it was that easy to go, here's exactly what you look for. Now, once we know kids actually are being trafficked, yeah, there are signs to look for. There are the signs. But I think for tonight's purpose in the lane to end it before it starts, it's much more subtle, and you have to know your kid. And just remember, it's those 3 words, exploitation and vulnerability.
Yeah, I would say that when a child's being exploited, abused, groomed, it's harmful, obviously, and so they're gonna have behavioral changes that reflect that something harmful is happening to them. So it may be really subtle, they may not disclose, but they're gonna be isolated. They may seem depressed. There's gonna be subtle behavioral changes that indicate something is going on beneath the surface. And so I took care of a teenage girl the other day, and her mom looked through her phone and realized she had been abused for years. And so, of course, she was devastated and just kept saying, I didn't know. And as we were talking through things, she's like, well, she's been really angry lately, and she failed 2 classes last year, which is not like her. So there were signs. It's just, of course, mom's brain didn't go to, oh, she's being abused by this person. And when I talked to the patient, I said, are you having trouble at school? And she's like, yeah, because of what was happening to me at home, I couldn't focus at school, and I failed 2 classes. So we start putting the pieces together, and it makes sense. But before she disclosed, all we had were these behavioral changes that mom couldn't really chalk it up to what was happening until she had those texts to confirm. So I would say if there are changes that are concerning, there is a reason why.
Excellent. Next question, what do you do if you've given your children open access to their phones, but now realize you need to pull back?
Pull back. I will tell you that
Pull back or go to jail.
that we had rules for our kids along, because as your kids get older, you want to give them some more freedom with their phones. One thing we did not want to do, we did not want to send them off to college having had all the same rules they had when they were 8th graders, right? We want to give them the ability to grow as kids. But sometimes we as parents, I made some decisions that gave our kids a little too much freedom too quickly. And I realized that I'd made a mistake, and I just went to him and I said, look, you made a mistake, but you only made a mistake because I made a mistake. And I'm not mad at you for this. I'm going to tell you we're going to readjust what you're able to do on your devices because, we've run into this problem. And I'm not telling you you'll never be able to get that freedom back again, but I'm telling you we're just going to have to readjust for a while so we can work through this and make sure that you're safe, you're doing the things right, and again, did my kids love it? No, but did they know that it came out of a place of love from their dad who wanted to protect them? I think they did. They definitely would tell you that today. They might not have told you that the day I did it, right? But if you've got that foundation that we need to be creating from the day our kids are born, they're going to understand mom and dad can make mistakes too, and sometimes we got to pull back on things that earlier we've given you the opportunity to do because we've seen that there are repercussions to it that we didn't contemplate.
That's excellent. Okay. I've got some questions that have come in just recent here. So what is the best way as a youth to help combat exploitation? That's a great question. The youth are wanting what we're being protected, but how do we protect?
One thing we talk about is if you see something, say something. And one thing that I use as an example with kids when I'm talking to them is, I know you don't want to get your friends in trouble, and you're thinking, oh, but if I tell my mom that she said she's going to spend the night with me, but she's really sneaking out with this guy that I'm throwing under the bus. You are not throwing your friend under the bus. Your friend is laying in the middle of the street and the bus is coming at them. Are you going to do something to save them from the bus? And we're not trying to put that pressure on the friends. We're reminding them, talk to a trusted adult, talk to a trusted adult, talk to a trusted adult. And so set that example. If you're a youth, set the example of being approachable and talking to trusted adults in your life, and encourage your friends. Take your friends seriously. If they say that they're really depressed, if they're talking about wanting to die by suicide, talk to a trusted adult because they need help and they're crying out for it.
So we've done school assemblies to over 57,000 students now, and one of the ways that we unpack this is with students. We do it in kind of a fun way. So from the biblical understanding, we understand that God created us, designed us, it formed us in our mother's womb. It also comes down to how we developed our brains. And the science of the brain is that the frontal vortex of the human brain is not fully developed until you're around 25 years old. That's why that 12-year-old does such dumb things, because they're using half their brain. So we unpack that in really fun ways in school assemblies, to the point to where we help students understand that they are living in their half-brain stage of life, and it's during their half-brain stage of life that they really need trusted adults to help them. And one of the things that we have found is we get done with these school assemblies, and kids actually come to us and say, thank you for telling us the truth. And they'll in as many words, acknowledge the fact that they do need help. So when schools give us the opportunity to connect with students after a school assembly is done, it's amazing how kids will come up to us and begin to pour their hearts out and share their stories, everything from abuse they've experienced to pornography. We've identified over 70 victims of actual domestic violence, sex trafficking, just through doing our presentations. And so when you go out and you proclaim the truth, what we're doing is we're actually going out to empower and to give hope and tell our students, you're heroes. And when you appeal to the hero in a kid, they step up. So it's not a message of you're being dumb, you're horrible, you're a bad kid online. That never works with anybody, right? Just the whole shame thing you both talked about earlier. We appeal to the hero in them, and I would strongly challenge and encourage our parents, when have we gone too far and we pull back, the first thing is be authentic and say, I'm sorry, I blew it as a parent. I trust you, but I don't trust what's happened online, and you fell into that trap. That's on me. So we're going to go revisit that cell phone contract again. I blew that as the parent. We're going to re-up this, and that's why we're going to pull back a little bit. It's not you. It's me. But guess what? You don't get to be on TikTok for 3 hours anymore. I'm taking the responsibility. I'm appealing to the hero in you to go, I'm going to step up and do that.
Excellent. I just encourage youth to just, band together and just, make a pact that we're going to stay alert and we're going to speak up. We're not going to be silenced and bullied into being silent, and I'd encourage them to do that too.
I was at a middle school. It was so awesome. So I got done with middle school, and I found out 2 weeks later that a whole bunch of the kids had gotten rid of some apps where they felt like they were really struggling, and they took my suggestion and they created a closed texting account, and they called the closed texting account the cockroach account, because so if you know anything about what we do, we have this cola cockroach story. If you don't know, then go online, figure it out. If you haven't heard it, I can't believe you haven't heard it. But so they actually called their private texting group the Cockroach Group. And they were so proud to come tell me the next year that here's how we communicate. And it's called the Cockroach Group. So you're exactly right, Pastor Phillip. The kids will band together.
Excellent. Okay, many schools provide iPads to our kids in kindergarten, and the protections on those devices are minimal. What can we do?
Supervise them. I mean, have them using those iPads in a room with mom and dad, right? Keep those things in the open, particularly when they're kindergartners.
We give them so we can get a break. I mean, that's the point.
That's right, and that's the mistake, right?
Yeah.
So we've got to have, particularly at that young an age, we've got to have kids using those devices around mom and dad where they can be supervised. And again, that can, as the kids get older, we can give kids more freedoms. After we know, kids actually thrive on boundaries, right? Sometimes parents don't want to believe that, but the truth of the matter is kids need and want boundaries. Kids want to know where the line is, and they're going to push that line. They want to know where the line is. And so we need to give them those lines. And when they're in kindergarten, and if the school district, and I know a lot of school districts are doing it, are giving them devices, that's okay, because as Russ points out, there's so many great things about technology. I tell people the internet is like a really big city, right? And so we're in the Kansas City metropolitan area. There are so many great things about Kansas City. We can go to Chiefs games. We can go to the World War I Museum. We can go to Nelson. We can do all these great things. Now, there are also some places in Kansas City where you should not send your 6 or 12 or 16-year-old kid alone at night. You just wouldn't do it. Well, that's the same on the internet. There are lots of wonderful sites on the internet that kids can be on that are great for them, that will help them. But there are also some really dark alleys of the internet. And what we've got to do as parents is make sure that our kids are going to the right places on the internet, using that technology for themselves in great ways, and protect them from the dark alleys of the internet.
That's a great illustration, I think. Excellent. So the next question that's come in is, where'd it go here? So what apps, because there are parents that are like, I don't really know. So like the kid says, I'm good, I'm clean, look at my phone. And that there's hidden things. So, but this question is, what is the, what do you do, any app or apps that are great to use their smartphones to help stop the porn? In other words, to be the filter that either alerts the parent, or what do they look for? Like when it comes to technology, like they need to take it to the guy, call the Geek Squad and have him come and like what? Like you're talking some parents that just are ignorant, like when it comes to those things.
So right now, through the Stop Trafficking Project, we recommend three different things. I think you guys have the websites. The first one's relatively new. It's called Canopy.
It's called what now?
Canopy.
Canopy?
Canopy.
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 So do we
Okay.
have that link we can put up? I think we're going to be connected to that, potentially. So what this is developed by a parent. So you see up there, canopy.us. It'll cost you some money. There's different pricing structures. Bark is another really good one for monitoring apps. Specifically, I think the question was regarding pornography.
Yeah.
So obviously Covenant Eyes is one of the best for that because it really provides a lot of the accountability. Just as a little disclaimer, if you decide to go with Covenant Eyes, please do it through our website, because if you actually sign up, we are an affiliate for them. So full disclosure, if you keep your service for like 8 months to a year, we'll get $20. Okay, so that's a shout out for that. So you can either just go straight on Covenant Eyes and do it straight from there, or if you go through our website, that gets us a little bit of money in about a year.
Can smart kids get around that?
Smart kids can get around everything. That's why I have kids in school telling me that they're actually surfing pornography during school on school-issued devices. And they are sharing porn through Google Classroom. So yes, kids can always get around everything. Nothing is fool safe. So again, it's where we're coming back and we're all this on the same page. It's not just about the technology. So you can utilize all these things, but you better not stop there as a parent. You still better be monitoring what your kids are doing live in person based on trusted relationship, understanding it's big window perspective. It's about 3 words. It's about the exploitation of vulnerability. What's the vulnerability in my 12-year-old versus my 18-year-old versus my 2-year-old, whatever it may be, and how online life plays a role in their life.
Excellent. Let's see. What do you do if you suspect someone is being exploited?
Tell a trusted adult first, and that trusted adult needs to contact law enforcement, right? If we think somebody is the victim of online exploitation, we've got good resources in the Kansas City area to help that. I'm really proud of the fact that here in Platte County, we started one of the first internet safety divisions in the state of Missouri.
That's awesome.
Our internet crimes unit started in 2006. It was one of the first in Missouri. We've been doing it for a long, long time. We know how to handle these cases, and law enforcement all over the Kansas City area is very good at handling these cases. So make sure a trusted adult knows, and trusted adults, please call 911, call the police, let them begin to deal with it. Don't erase text messages. Don't shut things down. Just leave things as they are. Stop, but leave things as they are.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, one of the things that we teach kids and parents is block it, save it, report it. So save it does not mean share it. Save it. Block it, block the predator person that's causing the issue, save it so that you can give it to law enforcement, because that is how dots are connected. And our friends in law enforcement tell us they would rather get a report that pans out to be nothing than to not receive a report of a child that is being exploited. So please make those phone calls if you have that suspicion.
Okay, I think this is like the last question that we've had in, and then we'll give time for last minute comments that any of you would like to make. How do you talk to your kids' friends' parents when they don't think anything should be of concern with their online safety, with the mentality kids will be kids?
So I've literally done this. This is why we create some things. So guys, there's some technology we can help to get their attention. So if you guys would look for the PSA video, I'm going to actually show you the PSA video, because this is a video on our app, on our website, that for the parent that goes, no, not my kid, this is crazy. This is a video created around one of our friends who was victimized. She gave us permission to put this story together. It's compelling. It's short, but it's a tool that has been used so many times to get that other parent to go, maybe I actually do need to have a little conversation about this. So it's on our app, it's on our website. So can we go and just run that real quick? It's about 2 minutes long, and we can kind of unpack that and help parents know how they can use that as a tool.
Okay, let's watch this.
I wanted you to stay after because I wanted to talk to you.
How did you misspell that word?
I wish you could be more like your sister. You've gone from an A to a D in this class.
Ask your mother.
Go ask your father. You're better than this.
You're not wearing that out of this house.
I know what you mean. My parents don't understand me either.
Do you have any idea how many calories are in that cupcake?
You really think you can play that sport? You're not athletic.
You look like a slob when you dress like that.
I need you to focus more in my class, like you used to.
I can see your belly.
You really need to give that up. You sound horrible.
Have you been talking to that guy you met online?
You are way too young to date.
He seems super nice.
What's wrong?
How old is he?
Is everything okay at home?
Not right now.
What kind of picture did you send him?
Check. Okay, if you can't read that in the audience, this is content that was being put back and forth. If you're at home, you can read it. The manipulation that she's going through, she's on the right-hand side. My mic didn't come on in time to get it, but you notice there, he puts "come on, let's meet," which is a sexual reference to a 12-year-old girl. This is real. He says he wants to pick her up after school. She finally agreed. So in the content you didn't read there was actual content as it was captured.
When's the last time you did see
between
her?
a 12-year-old girl and a 12-year-old
Yesterday morning,
predator.
before she left for school.
About 7:30. Look, it's been over 24 hours. Where is she? Have you heard anything?
This is an image that we pulled off of a known trafficking site.
What's that? It's not my little girl.
I'm afraid that it is, sir. This is a site where men go looking for young girls.
She's 12. She's never even had a boyfriend. What kind of animal would go looking for my little girl?
So we go ahead and kill the video. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. So this is simply a tool that's been used, honestly, to just kind of like get that conversation going. Because sometimes, even Jesus sometimes was a velvet wrapped brick. What are you doing, right? So sometimes in this conversation with parents who just kind of don't get it and just kind of sometimes we just have to be that velvet wrapped brick. Especially, I would challenge the guys in the room and the guys online to have the conversations with the young men in your life about pornography. Be the velvet wrapped brick at younger and younger ages to address that issue from an authentic place of potentially your own struggle with this, how you've overcome it, and what you are willing to do as an adult male mentor and that young boy's life to help them overcome this addiction. When we're in school assemblies, it is so common to have boys come up, tears in their eyes, and say, I have an addiction to pornography. What can you do to help me? And so that's why part of our strategy is to go in the community ahead of time and not just open the can of worms. But so this is a tool to open the conversation with that parent that doesn't believe it, and then begin to have a conversation. And we literally have thousands of people. Stacy in September and Becca and myself, we literally have thousands of people blaming the Stop Trafficking Project for their conversation. And that's okay. We're happy to take the blame. Hey, I was at this thing. I heard these people talking. They said this. They said this statistic. Here's a website. Blame us. We don't care if it at least gets the conversation started, because sometimes they're not just going to believe you. But here's the tragedy. You can't find a community in Missouri that hasn't been touched by this. And so now we're at the point to where people are becoming increasingly aware. Now we're in this place of it's either a lack of empathy or a sense of helplessness that there's nothing we can do. And there's a lot we can do.
Yeah, let me further commend the Stop Trafficking Project website to everybody here who's watching and listening to this. If you haven't been to that website, you need to go. It's got so many great tools, and we just saw one of them. But to answer this question too, I want to get back to something I said before. Kids will be kids, right? We got to turn that phrase on its head, because it's abundantly true. Kids will be kids. And what does that mean? That means kids, because they only have half a brain, literally, they will make mistakes. And we as parents, as churches, as communities, again, we've got to be that safety net. And so when we say kids will be kids, that means we have to step up to help protect kids.
Absolutely. Excellent. Okay, closing thoughts. You guys give you each 60 seconds. Go.
60 seconds?
Yeah. You're on the clock.
Start down there.
Well, I want to start by commending the Rock of KC, Pastor Phillip. Thank you so much for inviting us. This is so important. I love doing these sorts of things because they really are the issues that affect our kids today. And it is about the relationships we develop with them. It is true that the predators are now on the internet. But we, as parents, as communities, we can protect kids if we'll surround them with that love and that protection that we're able to give them. And it's events like this that help give parents the tools to do that. Again, it's the greatest privilege and solemn responsibility of my professional career to get to do what I do on a daily basis. But I'd prefer not to have to do it when it comes to kids and human trafficking. And make no mistake, it's out there, it exists. We just did we participated with the Department of Homeland Security and many other agencies, Platte County Sheriff's Department, Kansas City Police Department, a whole bunch of other departments, over a 10-day period, Wichita, Platte County, Independence, a human trafficking sting where 81 people were arrested. We saved 32 people who were being trafficked, 14 of those kids, the youngest one was 4 years old. So if you think this is a problem that doesn't exist in the Kansas City area, please stop deluding yourself. It does, but we can put a stop to it if we'll do some of the things that we've talked about tonight.
Yes, I can definitely vouch for that this is happening in our communities, unfortunately, to really young kids, to people of all ages. But I guess for my closing thought, what popped into my head is, I think for parents who are still kind of on the fence of like, I don't know if it's as bad as you guys are saying it is to ask your kids, hey, has anybody asked you for a naked picture online? Has a stranger ever talked to you? I think if they feel comfortable, you will be horrified at how kids are being inundated all of the time. I talked to a teenage girl the other day, and I said, hey, how often would you say that adult men online ask you for naked pictures? And she said, every day. Every day. I cannot imagine handling that as a 14 or 15-year-old. And maybe her vulnerabilities are a little bit different than your child, but I would say that is sort of becoming the norm, that kids are just being constantly inundated with all kinds of sexual content, and I think it's important to ask them about that.
Yeah, I would completely agree with everything that's been said here tonight, and just encourage you to find those tools and remember that you don't have to be the expert on apps or tools, you need to be an expert on your child. Engage with your child in authentic relationship. Recognize that there are kids in your sphere of influence who don't have parents that are engaging with them, or maybe that are even safe for them. So you could be that trusted adult for that child. Look around, because sometimes it seems like people either want to go in and crack heads, or they want to hug somebody and help them heal. And those are great things. Well, okay, we're going to leave the first one alone. But we need to understand that part of being an abolitionist, part of fighting this, is volunteering in the church nursery right here at the Rock, if this is where you go. Going to the school and volunteering to read with kids who are struggling in their classes. Getting engaged in some way. Be that safe adult. Be that person. Be the change that you want to bring in your community. You really can make a difference. I had a teacher who had no idea the scope of sexual abuse and things that I had gone through as a victim of domestic minor sex trafficking. But she was my teacher, and in one of my assaults, the guy had told me, I was yelling no, and he told me, girls like you don't get to say no. And she wrote me a note later, and she had no idea anything that had ever happened to me. She just knew that she could see I was wounded, I was struggling, I was trying to figure out who I was. She found out she was having a baby girl, and she wrote me a little note, and she said, September, when I have my little girl, I hope she's a girl like you. She took that phrase, girl like you, and she turned it around for me. And that made the difference, that I could walk into adulthood with a different perspective about who I was. And so we have the power to make a change by investing in the lives of those around us. So don't minimize the gifts that you have. You have important gifts. We walk in this flesh, but our weapons are not carnal. They're mighty in God, and they are effective for tearing down every stronghold and everything that exalts itself against the name of Jesus Christ.
So guys, pull up the PowerPoint practical ideas that work, and just go to the very last slide, since Pastor Phillips cut me off to 60 seconds. So he knows me too well. Because there's a number I want us to text, because you're going to be able to get a whole bunch of resources here. I will say this. Everything we've talked about tonight is from a tangible perspective. Understand the root issue of this is all spiritual. So if you neglect prayer and interceding over your kids, you're missing a huge part of this. It's literally like most of what we do going out into the secular settings. We still have a prayer team covering us, even though we can't go out and talk about Jesus and God half the time in public schools in these situations. The bottom line of this issue is spiritual. Secondly, your kids are not the enemy. So don't treat them that way, even when they make their mistake online. Give them room to fail. Give them opportunities to follow your example and say, I'm sorry, but you better say I'm sorry first. And then put practical tools in their hands. If we don't have that, it's fine. No worries. Don't have it? Practical ideas that work, PowerPoint? No, don't have it. Okay. So we have a great number that they can text, but I don't know what the number is. So it's really good. September might know it.
I do not know.
We don't know our own number to text.
We don't know our text
Stacey,
number.
do you know the number to text?
However, our website knows our text number and how to link you to the app, whether you have an Android or an iPhone, which is an ongoing battle.
Yeah, please download the app. There are so many free help items on there. It's not going to cost you anything. We're not putting you on a fundraising list. It's an app that we've developed between us, Stop Trafficking Project, and Relentless Pursuit. Lee Gibson and I were chatting a couple years ago. He wanted an app to do something for law enforcement. I'd been wanting an app to take for schools, and we just combined it and made one thing. And it's been really, really powerful. So that is available to you guys as well. So what is it, Stacy? 833. Text Be Alert to 833-321-0219.
And you can get that on their website.
And it's on our website.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Hey, I just want to thank each of you for coming. Thank you for those of you that have tuned in online. I just want to leave all of us with this word: stay alert, stay vigilant. Russ taught here years ago on this platform. It's a big problem. It is a big problem, but we have a bigger God. And I think that we can't lose that side of God. And there's no way that one of us can do this. And God's not asking or requiring us to do everything, but to do something. And the more people that will do something, then the snowball effect begins to take place. And the movement and the abolition of it, it becomes bigger and bigger, and it becomes harder and harder for the predators who, until the Lord returns, people are going to be depraved. They're going to choose evil over good. But the greater, it's just like with smoking cigarettes. Most people know today that it's a really dumb thing to do. I mean, and because of the ubiquitous commercials that were done for years, you know, and now there's not hardly a place you can go where it's allowed, you know, even on some campuses. How did that happen? Well, because awareness and the continual awareness and the continual awareness, and now it's more of, you know, rather than the cool thing to do. And so your part matters, the part you play matters. And don't think that your part is insignificant. Don't think that one prayer is insignificant or that one tool that you've gained is insignificant. Because if all of us will do our part, then it'll be joined together to create a movement that is taking place worldwide. And awareness is rising, and then action begins to take place. So stay encouraged, stay hopeful, keep your focus on the God who is able, and just continue to do the part that you have in your hand to do. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much. I want to thank you for Russ and for September and for Heidi, and I want to thank you for Eric and just the people that are here and online and all those who are continuing to go about their lives, love their kids, love their families, enjoy life, but also to stay vigilant and to stay alert so that the most vulnerable among us may be able to grow up and enjoy their life without this exploitation. And we're looking to you as the ultimate protector and the ultimate one who gives energy to us, that gives grace to us, that gives us the grace to stay in the battle. And we give you the glory and praise in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. God bless you all. Thank you.